Hello YouTube. This video will demonstrate to you what human beings can do to wreck nature, destroy nature, and turn it against our very survival. COVID-19 was just a recent example. Today you will learn of another one. According to the Belarusian Valery Prokhorov, Doctor of Biological Sciences, not only his country, Belarus, but also many other neighboring countries are now forced to resist the expansion of the botanical monster, or as they say in the Baltic states, Stalin's grass. In Estonia, for example, even military formations are involved in this battlefield. In Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland, the Sosnovsky hogweed plant is even officially called Stalin's revenge. After all, it was on the direct instructions of the father of the peoples, as they called Stalin, that the introduction of the vegetable monster in the USSR and the countries of the so-called socialist camp in agriculture began as a fodder crop for the preparation. The botanical monster, which the Estonians are already using their army to fight, increased its colony in Belarus by 1/10 in a year, and in the city of Minsk by 1/3. And you will understand that this is by no means a local problem. Even during the economic crisis, the country was forced to take extraordinary measures to destroy that grass, again called the Stalin's revenge. See, but the mankind is not winning in this battle. Let me use the example of Russia, the most impacted country today. But again, do not think that other countries have nothing to fear. By 2060, Sosnovsky's hogweed, or Herculum sosnovsky, will take over the whole of Russia. There is no escape from it. Huge poisonous umbrellas will cover all available spaces. Other vegetation will die. This forecast was given by artificial intelligence, which was fed the properties of hogweed, climate, and soil data. The study was conducted in the Institute of Science and Technology in Skolkovo. If you are out of cities, visit the countryside, at least from time to time, and visit that countryside, you are amazed at how quickly the poisonous weed spreads around. Until recently, there was a field, for example, in one location. It was not cultivated, but the soft green grass pleased the eye. Young birch trees crowded here and there. Today it is more like a Jurassic rainforest. Giant, ugly, hollow stems, aggressive leaves, as if cut with a madman's scissors, taller than a human being. If you dare to approach, you will smell the stench of rotting water, which is now accumulating under the monster plants, as if in a swamp. It's like a science fiction picture. But it is better not to approach. The juice of the plant is poisonous. Moreover, the poison is activated by the ultraviolet radiation of the sun. You can accidentally stain your skin and not notice, but then the sun, when it comes out, instantly human being suffers terrible burns. Few people know that even without the sun, its venom causes gross mutations in chromosomes. Yes, hogweed changes human genes. For some reason, this is rarely talked about. Humans fight this plant and do it mainly with poisons. This is a familiar sight in Russia. A tank truck stops by the road. People, most often without any protection, put canisters on their backs, hoses in their hands. At best, there are respirators on their faces. Local media warn that there is treatment against the hogweed, that it's in progress, but do not approach. Chemicals is most often substances like the infamous Roundup, herbicide that affects the nervous system and the whole entire person as well. After use against the plant, it falls into the water, and from there it flows anywhere and everywhere. The herbicide burns out the hogweed in places of the umbrellas, referring to the description of the hogweed. There is a disgusting space polluted with slime, littered with ugly shriveled stems. It's along the road where they are destroyed. But look further and you see the sea of the same hogweed. You can't flood the whole of Russia with herbicide. And again, it might spread out, not only be limited to that country and its neighbors. Chemical methods of control are dangerous and ineffective, the authors of the study conclude. And actually, the person named Sosnovsky has nothing to do with this threat to mankind. Many people think that someone Sosnovsky, by the name of Sosnovsky, invented the hogweed. Well, he is presented as a kind of evil genius, a hunched professor from a castle on a cliff, wearing huge glasses and with a chilling laugh. That's not the case. Nobody created the hogweed. The plant grew in the Caucasus area, its native territory. It existed in isolated places. The hogweed has no natural enemies, and the question is, why did it not spread in the old days? The answer is animals and birds are so afraid of it that there is no one to spread the seeds. But looking at the map where humans are fighting it now in Russia, it's around Moscow, St. Petersburg, and along the roads, especially on the busy highway to Siberia. It is distributed by human beings. As a rule, the seeds are found on the wheels of cars. But before, the plant grew where no one goes, no one treads, in the wilds of the Caucasus Mountains. So what happened? Dmitry Sosnovsky, born in 1886, even under the Tsar, began working as a botanist in that Caucasus area. 26 plants are named after him. He discovered them. But what have you heard, for example, about the Apropyron Sosnovsky? But we have heard about the Heracillum Sosnovsky, that is the hogweed, or Bolshevik in Russian. The history is really cryptic here. Allegedly, famous Soviet biologist Pyotr Vavilov in 1944 at the All-Union Academy of Agricultural Sciences decided that cows would willingly eat hogweed. So you can correct the situation with this feed for cattle, and there was a great need for it in the socialist motherland. See, but there is a discrepancy here. Those seeds of hogweed from which the epidemic started were collected in the Caucasus only in 1951-1952, and it seems that it was launched into testing as a fodder crop only in 1977. That's why the hogweed appeared relatively recently. I dug out some interesting information. The first experiments on the study and use of this plant were started in 1947 in the Polar Alpine Botanical Garden, located near Kirovsk in the Murmansk region. Since 1953, the Botanical Garden of the Botanical Institute of the USSR Academy of Sciences began to deal with it. Since 1955, the study of that hogweed has been carried out in the Belarus, in Siberia, and other regions. In the autumn of 1962, the Minister of Agriculture of Ukraine, by a special order, obliged to study and test the Sosnovsky hogweed as a new forage plant. They forgot about the hogweed right up to 2012, when in some places the invasion was already evident, and in order to fight it, it was necessary to at least delete it from the list of agricultural plants and from the list of useful products. In 2015, it was declared a weed, and it is still listed in this list of weeds somewhere between burdocks and dandelions. Where was it tested? When did the scientists realize that it was poisonous and that cows did not eat it? How did the plant run wild? How did it escape? Who missed its release? Is there a connection with the collapse of the collective farm system when there was no one to look after the hogweed and no one cared? Why was it initially tested only in that Komi Republic in Russia? Here are just some puzzling questions that have no answer. But this was yet another crime in the bloody collectivist socialist system committed against the country I was born in, the USSR. It's not just the Chernobyl in my native Ukraine, not just the Gulag concentration camp system. You know, they also destroyed nature, damaged ecology, and gave us years of incessant indoctrination. And by the way, again, the hogweed is extremely humble in its natural environment. Actually, in addition to Caucasus, it is found in the Middle East. While it became the scourge of Europe thanks to the uncontrollable Soviet biologists, hogweed entered Europe through the GDR or East Germany. Now it is found in Germany, Scandinavia, and of course in Belarus, the Baltic states, and Poland. But only in Russia, where vast expanses of arable land were abandoned, it became a fiend and a real and growing problem, occupying at least 1 million hectares. Russia will become the arena of the battle of botanical giants, and the spread of hogweed is accelerating in a warm climate. Even though the center of Russia is covered with cold weather, well, in the spring of 2022, no one has cancelled global warming according to the Skolkovo study, and that may help the hogweed to defeat humanity, according to those who believe in global warming. Another conclusion of the study is this: it is necessary to look for natural enemies. Using chemistry, we will not win. And there are such enemies to think about. It's just the thing is, they're not much better than the hogweed. We're talking about Reinutria, a Japanese plant that, like hogweed, subdues the entire flora. Reinutria is a genus of flowering plants in the family Polygonaceae. The genus is native to eastern China, eastern Asia, and the Russian Far East, although species have been introduced to Europe and North America. Members of the genus, including Reinutria japonica, or Japanese knotweed, and its hybrid with Reinutria saccharinensis, are highly invasive plants. So hogweed was brought to Europe, and now Reinutria was brought to Europe, and now they don't know what to do with it. So in England, you won't sell a plot of it, of land, if it has this stuff on that plot. Moreover, the Japanese invasive plant does not react to chemicals at all. In 2020, it broke through the Russian border from the east. At the same time, it attacked from the west. The plant is already in the Leningrad region, for example. So, Russia can become the arena of the battle of the giants, hogweed and Reinutria. Who will win? Does it really matter if humanity cannot live with either of them? So Russian scientists are still throwing up their hands. They're looking for an enemy to defeat hogweed. It is unclear whether it will be a plant, an animal, or an insect. But they must hurry. They can seriously lose their own country by giving it to it, an invasive plant. And of course, this is not an exclusively Russian issue. Unfortunately, when viruses are created and spread around the world, or hogweeds, we all suffer. By the way, do you enjoy Jerusalem artichoke? Its tubers are more valuable than potatoes. It was brought from America before potatoes, but the latter turned out to be tastier. But Jerusalem artichoke is healthier. The Jerusalem artichoke, Helianthus tuberosus, also called sunroot, sunchoke, wild sunflower, topinamber, or earth apple, is a species of sunflower native to Central North America. Before the arrival of Europeans, Native Americans cultivated Jerusalem artichoke as a food source. The tubers persist for years after being planted, so that the species expanded its range from Central North America to the eastern and western regions. Early European colonists learned of this and sent tubers back to Europe, where it became a popular crop and naturalized there. It later gradually fell into obscurity in North America, but attempts to market it commercially have been successful in the late 1900s and early 2000s. The tubers can be eaten raw, cooked, or pickled. Well, it is a wild plant that spreads powerfully and subdues the surrounding species, but does not poison the soil, is not poisonous, blooms beautifully, and is edible. There is an idea to knock out the hogweed with Jerusalem artichoke, and why not? Well, also, I know that the Russian engineers have developed and tested a drone that detects Sosnovsky's hogweed from the air and marks it in pictures for subsequent destruction. One of the problems in the fight against hogweed is its survivability and the large-scale spread of seeds, even from single plants. Because of this, in order to detect and make maps for the destruction of this plant, it is necessary either to manually bypass fields and other territories or to use aircraft. Most satellites do not give high enough resolution to identify single plants, but the accounting of plants with the help of aircraft is still poorly automated and is often based on the use of expensive aircraft in operation. So the engineers from Skoltech have developed an algorithm that allows the use of multi-copters for autonomous recognition of the Sosnovsky hogweed in the territory under them. As for the United States, giant hogweed, Heracleum montegazianum, is a very large invasive plant that can cause painful burns and permanent scarring. Brushing against or breaking the plant releases a sap that, combined with sunlight and moisture, can cause a severe burn within 24 to 48 hours. Giant hogweed is a federally listed noxious weed, and for example, New York state law prohibits its possession with the intent to sell, import, purchase, transport, introduce, or propagate. Giant hogweed is a biennial or perennial herb which can grow to 14 feet or more. Its hollow, rigid stem grows 2 to 4 inches in diameter and have dark reddish-purple blotches. Its large compound leaves can grow up to 5 feet wide. Its white flower heads can grow up to 2.5 feet in diameter. Giant hogweed originates from the Caucasus Mountains between the Black and the Caspian Seas by Russia, but it made its way into the United States by the early 20th century. How? Apparently, birds and waterways can carry seeds which can grow up to 10 years once they're dropped off. The toxic plant grows in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Virginia, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So, what they have, those giant hogweed sap, it contains toxic chemicals known as photosensitizing fluorocoumarins. When these chemicals come into contact with the human skin, it can cause a skin reaction that's extremely sensitive to light. The light-sensitive skin reaction causes dark, painful blisters that form within 48 hours and result in scars that can last anywhere from a few months to 6 years. Touching a giant hogweed can also cause long-term sunlight sensitivity and blindness if sap gets into a person's eye. If you live near a giant hogweed, apparently it says you can mow or weed whack the plant before you touch it to prevent exposure, right? Think again. That will just send up the new growth and potentially expose you to toxic sap. So you should call a professional or local authorities who can properly destroy the plant and its seeds. Stay away from it. As for the world, well, 3 huge hogweed, 3 close relatives completely divided Europe, although something remained to some less burdensome relatives. I have already named the first 2, and the third one is Persian hogweed, native to Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. The history of its introduction is unclear, and it is possible that it is often mixed with other species. It mainly affected only Scandinavia and Europe. In other parts of Europe, there are only isolated centers. It has been established that the populations of all 3 are thriving, have great genetic diversity, and are rapidly evolving. Well, yells and screams, even very loud ones, do not help against hogweed. And in 2002-2005, the European project Giant Alien was developed. Hogweed Montegassi was chosen as a model weed, the study of which will help to manage it and the Sosnovsky variety. All we can do is hope. So, not very bright, more sinister, but now you see, and more examples of what humans sometimes do to their own planet. If you like my research, please support me in the links you will find in the description to this video. Please like my videos, and please tell others. Thank you.